Coming home late from working overtime, I stumbled upon an intimate scene involving my husband. Peter, when will you finally get a divorce? I've waited so long for you. It's painful for me. The woman clung to my husband, Peter Einstein, pouring out her grievances, wishing she could merge herself into his body. Peter, lost in passion, could hardly contain himself. Panting heavily, he replied, "Baby, not now. I still need her to help stabilize the company. Once the crisis is over, I'll ask her for a divorce and never be apart from you again." Raindrops fell on them, transforming into a halo of shimmering light. They embraced, kissed, and tangled in the curtain of rain. Lost in the heat of the moment, I put away my phone, turned and walked into the night. One phone call later, I agreed to my older sister's request to return to the countryside and take over our family business. "Who are you talking to?" I hadn't noticed when Peter returned. By the time I realized, he was standing at the entrance to the study, towel in hand, drying his hair. I put my phone away and answered truthfully. Peter frowned slightly. "Your family only has a few measly acres of land. What's there to inherit? Instead of going back to be a farmer, why not pick up more jobs to pay off your debts? My sister wants to expand the orchard and the 50,000 is the investment for our family." I began to explain softly, but he cut me off mid-sentence. "Enough. We've been together for so many years. Don't you think I know your family's situation? Don't use supporting your hometown as an excuse for failing to invest properly." His mocking words came one after another. To him, I was just a woman living off his support. When I didn't respond, his tone suddenly softened. "Don't go back to the new house for the next couple of days. Regina's lease is up and she'll be staying there temporarily." Peter's voice was calm, but I felt shattered. That was the house I had purchased specifically for preparing to conceive. I wanted to protest, but he was already looking at his phone with a gentle gaze, walking into the bedroom without sparing me a thought. He didn't care how I felt at all. Watching his retreating figure, a wave of helplessness washed over me. 10 years of love, only to be replaced by someone new. Was this the ultimate fate of love? The next morning, Peter left early. I made a simple dish of toast and scrambled egg to fill my stomach and looked around at the empty house. I knew Peter had gone to see Regina again. Sitting in the living room, I leaned in a corner, scrolling through my messages. A post on Regina's social media caught my eye. In the video, Peter wore a pink apron, his eyes full of affection. He carefully prepared a plate of chicken fettuccine alfredo, a sharp contrast to the tasteless toast in front of me. And the setting for their video? They were in my new home, with its mortgage still unpaid. The caption, full of hearts, tried but failed to hide the truth, and the comments piled up long and endless. "Wow, as expected, Regina. Just graduated 2 years ago and you already married to a CEO. You're truly our role model, right? We graduated straight into unemployment while you went straight to the top. Please, let us have a CEO just as loving." Regina replied, "Don't overthink it, everyone. It's just that Peter is kind enough to take me in." Her vague words only fueled more excitement in the comments. Several acquaintances who knew Peter sent me private messages asking about it. I didn't respond. Instead, I exited the app and liked her post. As expected, a message popped up from Regina, "Madeline, please don't misunderstand. I just wanted to thank Peter, nothing more." I let out a cold laugh, just about to reply, when several voice messages suddenly appeared. I tapped on them and Peter's voice came through. "I only made some dishes for Regina, so why are you being so passive-aggressive? If you do this again, don't blame me for being harsh." His voice was cold and full of irritation. Regina's voice cut in, trying to soothe him. "Peter, don't be angry. Madeline is just worried that I'll steal you away. Besides, I haven't been hurt in any way. You don't have to stand up for me." Peter scoffed. Only a useless woman would be afraid of her husband being taken away. If she had the ability to keep me, she wouldn't worry. Hearing that, my anger flared instantly. I tried to send a message back, only to see a red exclamation mark pop up. He blocked me right away. I hadn't even been given a chance to fight back. My head buzzed with rage and my hands trembled slightly. Once I calmed down, I quickly contacted a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. From today on, anyone who wants to deal with this mess can have it. I, Madeline Lockster, am done. In the office, I was eager to type out my resignation letter. Before I could even finish, the door burst open. It was Peter's personal secretary, barging in with a package. She tossed the item onto my desk with a thud. I glanced at the bag. It held the gown I had worn at our wedding reception. I frowned, puzzled as to why it was now in her hands. "Mr. Einstein is taking Regina to a banquet tonight. He wants you to have this gown repaired," she announced. "Aren't you always clinging to Mr. Einstein anyway? This is a great chance to see the difference between you two, so you can stop dreaming about him every day." With that, she huffed and walked out, her disdain palpable. I was used to this attitude. Ever since I joined the company as a mysterious hire, everyone assumed I was Peter's pampered mistress. I tried explaining, but Peter claimed it would cause unnecessary drama and forced me to swallow my grievances. I had thought that once the company stabilized, I'd be able to clear my name. But I hadn't anticipated this. The company wasn't stable yet and Peter had already fallen for someone else. He flaunted his relationship with Regina, even ensuring she wouldn't have to work overtime. Soon, the entire company knew about his new love interest and everyone waited for my downfall. Unfortunately for them, I was ready to leave. I was done playing my part in this twisted love triangle. After the secretary left, I sent my finished resignation letter to HR. Not long after, curious colleagues gathered outside my office. "I told you, Madeline was never going to last with Mr. Einstein. How could a plain woman like her even think she could climb that high? See? A more beautiful woman comes along and she has to leave in disgrace. It's a little pitiful, but she brought it on herself. A gold digger trying to win over a prince. Who else deserves this more?" Their mocking comments trickled into my ears, but I felt nothing. After all, once Peter and I divorced, I'd have no ties to any of them. When I wrapped up my work and packed my things, the moving service called. I rushed home and gathered my belongings. As I watched the moving truck pull away, a heavy weight seemed to lift from my heart. For years of dating, 6 years of marriage, Even the strongest feelings couldn't withstand the arrival of someone new. I let out a bitter laugh, only to see Peter walking toward me. "What are you doing here?" He brushed past the moving truck, his expression tense, as if something troubled him. A hint of unease lingered between his brows. "Nothing, I just got off work," I said, making up an excuse to brush him off before heading back inside. In the living room, Peter opened a bag he was holding. He placed a bowl of soup on the table. "I passed by a seafood shop and thought of your favorite fish soup, so I got some for you," he said, and handing them to me. He'd long forgotten that I was allergic to seafood. I stared at the soup, unsure how to even start. Peter didn't notice and continued speaking. "HR told me you submitted your resignation," he said. "Was it because of Regina?" His voice was low and his lips pressed into a tight line, as if probing for the truth. "What, are you afraid I'll storm off in a fit of rage?" I joked, trying to sound casual. Peter's eyes flickered and a spark of anger flared. "I've told you before, there's nothing between me and Regina," he said. "Can you stop overthinking everything? It's exhausting." I forced a smile and changed the subject. "Didn't you always say I don't earn enough?" "A friend introduced me to a new job that pays better," I replied calmly. Peter's expression stiffened. He probably remembered the measly $5,000 salary he paid me each month. "So you think what I give you isn't enough?" he snapped. "Fine, I'll add $500 a month, but don't quit. The company still needs you." I said nothing. Peter assumed I agreed and sighed in relief, heading to get some water. He soon noticed the usual decorations on the table were gone. "Where's our nesting doll set?" he asked, referring to the DIY watercolor figurines we made together 3 years ago. "It's outdated, so I put it away," I lied effortlessly, picking out the scarce vegetables from the overly spicy fish soup. I was exhausted from a long day, and aside from the bland toast and scrambled egg I had that morning, I hadn't eaten anything else. Peter seemed puzzled, but reached into his bag and handed me a card. "Is this severance pay?" I joked, fiddling with the bank card. He frowned. "It's for you to buy some clothes. There's a banquet and I need you to come with me," he said. "Make sure to get a new gown. Don't embarrass me," he added, glancing at my outfit with visible disdain. I looked at him, surprised. Wasn't he planning to take Regina? The question formed in my mind, but before I could voice it, his phone rang. Regina's name flashed on the screen. Peter didn't hesitate to answer right in front of me. "Regina, what's wrong?" "I'm busy right now," he said. "Peter, you said you were just handling something at the office. Why aren't you back yet?" she whined playfully. Startled by her sudden sweetness, Peter glanced at me. Seeing that I appeared unfazed, he relaxed and stepped into the bedroom to continue his call. The room had good soundproofing, but I could still make out his gentle murmurs through the door. The fish soup had barely any vegetables, so I had to make another new meal in the kitchen. My cooking skills weren't great. The gnocchi was tasteless, but it was the only thing I could eat. Peter walked out just as I finished eating. He glanced at the untouched fish soup and my bare, flavorless gnocchi, his face darkening. "Are you trying to give me an attitude?" he snapped. When I remained silent, he snatched the bank card from the table and said, "If you want to act like this, don't bother coming to the banquet tonight." With that, he turned toward the door. Just before leaving, he inexplicably glanced back, sensing something had changed in the room, though he couldn't pinpoint what. Seeing my composed expression only made him more irritable. He slammed the door and left hurriedly, shutting me inside a shadowed, suffocating space. I couldn't help feeling bitterly mocked by it all. 6 years of marriage, 10 years of love, and within 3 months, he could forget about my seafood allergy and forget about me for another woman. He was willing to leave me behind for another woman, while I still saw him as that shy, passionate boy in a white shirt. Tears welled up in my eyes. It must have been the damn chili peppers. My phone buzzed on the table, and through the haze of tears, I saw it was my lawyer calling. "Miss Luxter, the divorce papers are ready. Are you sure you want to transfer your 51% stake in Einstein Corporation to the competitor? Doing so might invite trouble from Mr. Einstein." "It's fine," I replied hoarsely. Einstein Corporation had been my creation from the start. Though the public face of the company had changed, I was always the actual majority shareholder. Satisfied with my confirmation, the lawyer promised to send someone over with the documents. After cleaning up, I wiped away all traces of myself from the house. If no one mentioned it, nobody would know a married couple once lived here. Dragging my suitcase, I booked the next available flight. The doorbell rang and it was the tailor delivering my repaired gown. Time had passed, but the dress I wore for our wedding looked just as beautiful as it once did. Sadly, everything else had changed. The relationship between Peter and I was no longer what it used to be. I took a moment to compose myself and place the gown back in its bag. My phone vibrated again, and this time, it was my older sister's messages on WhatsApp. Several voice messages popped up. "Madeline, Mr. Reagan Whiteley from Alabama is hosting his golden wedding banquet tonight. If you can, try to make an appearance. If it works out, we'll partner with him and Luxter Corporation can open our first orchard branch in Alabama. If you seal the deal, you won't have to shuttle back and forth and can stay near Peter." Reading the address she provided, I realized it was the same as the one Peter's secretary had given me. I laughed bitterly at the absurdity. Was Peter so blinded by his infatuation, or had he completely lost his sense? It was one thing for him to have Regina wear my own gown, but to bring her to an old family friend's golden wedding banquet? Was he trying to embarrass the respected businessman, or was he just eager to elevate Regina? Either way, it no longer mattered. Once we divorced, she could do whatever she wanted. I glanced at the gown on the coffee table, lost in memories of our wedding day's joy. But it was time to let go. When the divorce agreement arrived, I signed my name with a flourish. Taking the gown, I headed to the banquet hall, ready to face whatever came next.